Hello, and welcome to History at Bedtime. At first light, before the hall fills with voices and before smoke begins to gather beneath the rafters, the castle is almost quiet. The outer gate is still closed. The iron bands across the wood are black with age and damp. A watchman stands above it in a wool cloak, his hands tucked into his sleeves, looking down the road that climbs from the village to the hill. The road is pale in the morning mist. Below it, fields lie in strips, hedges divide one holding from another, and smoke begins to rise from cottages whose people have already been awake for some time. From this height, the whole estate seems to belong to the castle. The mill, the river bend, the church tower, the patches of woodland, the winter bare orchards, the road, the bridge, the peasants' houses, even the sheep moving in the wet grass. That is not an accident. A medieval castle was built to be seen. It was a house, but not only a house. It was a fortress, but not only a fortress. It was an office, a court, a warehouse, a barracks, a prison, a chapel, a school for noble children, a workshop, a stable, a stage for power, and sometimes a last refuge when the countryside beyond its walls became dangerous. It was a place where people slept and ate and prayed, but every stone also spoke of command. The person who held the castle did not merely occupy a building. He occupied a position in the world. To modern eyes, a castle can seem romantic because time has softened it. Ivy covers old walls. Grass grows in the bailey. Broken windows frame the sky. The cold rooms are visited in summer, when the air is mild and the past feels picturesque. But the people who lived inside those walls did not live inside romance. They lived inside stone, smoke, hierarchy, labor, hunger, noise, duty, fear, boredom, ceremony, and occasional beauty so intense that it could make the hardness around it bearable. This is the life inside a medieval castle, not the fairy tale castle with clean banners and perfect towers, and not the opposite fantasy of nothing but filth and misery. The real castle was more complicated. It could be magnificent and uncomfortable at the same time. It could protect people and imprison them. It could be full of music one evening and full of panic the next. It could smell of roasting meat, horse sweat, candle grease, wet wool, rushes, smoke, iron, bread, ale, herbs, dogs, leather, and latrine shafts. It could be a place of hospitality and a machine for domination. It could be home. Before the household wakes fully, the castle's shape already explains much of its life. The ditch, the bank, the curtain wall, the towers, the gatehouse, the inner ward, the keep, the chapel, the hall, the kitchens, the stables, the well, the stores, the guardrooms, the chambers built against the walls, the stairways turning in tight spirals through stone. All of these are more than architecture. They are instructions. They tell people where to go, where to wait, whom to avoid, whom to approach, who may pass freely, who must ask permission, who may sleep under a roof, who must sleep beside the fire, who may eat near the Lord, who must carry the food, who may speak in the hall, and who must lower the eyes and listen. The castle begins at the gate. A gatehouse was never only a door. It was the most dangerous and most controlled part of a castle, because every fortress must have an opening, and every opening is a weakness. That weakness was turned into a trap. A visitor approaching a strong castle might cross a ditch or a bridge, pass beneath murder holes, wait under the eyes of guards, and stand between heavy doors while someone above decided whether to admit him. The portcullis could fall. The drawbridge could rise. The gate could become a throat that swallowed an attacker and held him there. For ordinary visitors, the same space was not dramatic but practical. The gatekeeper asked names, business, origin, purpose. A tenant came to speak about a dispute. A merchant arrived with salt fish, cloth, iron tools, wine, pepper, or wax. A messenger carried letters sealed with wax. A priest passed through on his way to the chapel. A mason or carpenter entered for repairs. A beggar might be turned away or sent to the outer court. A group of travelers might be allowed in before nightfall, because outside walls after dark were not always safe. The gate marked the boundary between the open world and the Lord's world. Once inside, everything had an order. The outer court might look chaotic, but it had its own logic. Horses were led toward the stables. Carts creaked over packed earth. Chickens scattered. A dog barked. A groom shouted at a boy who had left a strap where it might be trampled. A blacksmith's hammer rang from a workshop near the wall. A woman carried water. Servants crossed with baskets of kindling. Men-at-arms talked near a stair. A clerk moved quickly with tablets and papers, trying to keep his feet out of the mud. A castle courtyard on a working morning was not a silent stone enclosure. It was a village compressed inside defensive walls. Above the court stood the hall. The hall was the heart of the castle, and it is impossible to understand castle life without entering it. Not the empty hall of a ruin, where footsteps echo and the mind supplies banners that are no longer there, but the living hall, noisy, smoky, crowded, warm in patches and cold in others, lit by fire and window slits, full of servants, dogs, benches, trestle tables, weapons on walls, tapestries against drafts, and people constantly watching one another. In the hall, the household ate. In the hall, guests were received. In the hall, judgments were heard, rents discussed, petitions brought, punishments announced, alliances formed, news repeated, rumors tested, marriages celebrated, quarrels contained, and generosity displayed. It was a dining room, a courtroom, a reception space, a dormitory for many, and the public face of the Lord's authority. At one end, usually raised on a dais, stood the high table. The Lord, his family, honored guests, and important household officers sat there. They did not simply eat there. They appeared there. Their position told the whole room where power gathered. Below them, other tables filled the hall in a strict order of rank. Knights and senior retainers nearer the top, lesser servants farther down, visitors placed by status and usefulness. Seating was never casual. A place at table was a sentence in the language of hierarchy. The salt cellar could mark a social division so clear that people remembered whether they sat above or below it. To sit near the Lord was to be seen. To sit far away was also to be seen, but differently. A medieval meal in a castle was not private nourishment. It was a daily rehearsal of the world as the castle understood it. The household began preparing for that meal long before anyone sat down. The kitchen was one of the hardest working places in the castle. It was hot, dangerous, loud, and disciplined. Large households required enormous amounts of food, and food had to be produced with fire, knives, iron hooks, cauldrons, spits, ovens, barrels, baskets, and human muscle. The cook was not a casual domestic helper. In a great household, he was a skilled professional with authority over assistants, kitchen boys, scullions, bakers, brewers, turnspit boys, and anyone else whose work touched the meal. The fireplaces were huge. Meat turned on spits. Pottage simmered. Bread baked. Fish was cleaned. Sauces were beaten, strained, colored, thickened, sharpened with vinegar, sweetened with honey, scented with spices, or softened with almond milk. Grease spat into the fire. Smoke irritated eyes. A careless sleeve could catch flame. A heavy pot could scald a leg. A dropped dish could draw curses from the cook, because food was wealth and wasted food was not easily forgiven. Medieval castle food was not one thing. It depended on wealth, season, region, rank, religious calendar, and occasion. A great feast might include multiple courses, roasted meats, game, fish, pies, spiced sauces, delicate sweets, preserved fruits, wine, ale, and dishes made partly for display. An ordinary day might be simpler: bread, ale, pottage, cheese, fish, meat if available, beans, peas, onions, herbs, and leftovers managed carefully. The Lord's table and the servants' table were not the same. The castle was one household, but not one stomach. Spices mattered because they were expensive and because they connected the castle to a world far beyond its walls. Pepper, ginger, cinnamon, cloves, mace, nutmeg, saffron, and other imported flavors did not arrive by magic. They came through ports, merchants, tolls, risk, and money. When a lord served spiced food, he was not only improving the taste, he was showing that his reach extended beyond the local fields. A dish could announce power as clearly as a tower. Yet the castle also depended on ordinary food from nearby land. The surrounding fields grew grain. The mill turned it into flour. The bakehouse made bread. The dairy produced cheese and butter. Gardens supplied herbs and vegetables. Orchards gave apples, pears, plums, and cherries. Fish ponds provided food on fast days. Dovecots produced pigeons and manure. Rabbits, deer, boar, and birds came from managed landscapes of privilege. The castle looked down on the countryside, but it also fed from it. Without the labor beyond the walls, the great hall would go hungry. The village felt the castle's appetite. Peasants owed rents, labor, produce, or services depending on time and place. They brought grain, poultry, eggs, firewood, hay, carting, repairs, and dues. They used the Lord's mill, paid fees, and knew that the castle's protection came with obligation. In dangerous times, the castle might be a refuge. In ordinary times, it could be a burden. The same walls that guarded a region also reminded everyone who controlled it. This is why the castle cannot be understood only from inside. Every meal in the hall reached outward into fields, forests, mills, ponds, roads, and villages. The Lord's table was set by many hands that did not sit near it. When the food was ready, the meal became ceremony. Servants carried dishes from kitchen to hall, often through passages designed to keep movement orderly. The steward supervised. The marshal, chamberlain, butler, pantler, ewer, carver, cupbearer, and other officers had roles that changed with region and period but always expressed the same idea. A great household was a system. Water was brought for washing hands. Bread trenchers might serve as plates. Knives were personal or supplied. Spoons were used. Forks, in the modern dining sense, were not yet common in many medieval Western households. People ate with fingers more than modern manners would allow, but they were not without etiquette. There were rules for washing, sharing, serving, carving, speaking, and behaving before those of higher rank. Dogs waited for scraps. That detail is small, but it changes the room. A hall with dogs is not a clean ceremonial diagram. It is alive. Bones fall. A hound noses under a bench. A boy kicks it away. Someone laughs too loudly. Someone watches whether the Lord notices. Someone at the lower tables tries to hear news from the upper end. A minstrel sings. A clerk stands ready. The fire cracks. The hall becomes a body. Eating, judging, smelling, listening, ranking, remembering. After the meal, the tables did not necessarily remain as furniture. Trestles could be taken down. Benches moved. The same space changed function. By night, the hall might become a sleeping room for members of the household who had no chamber of their own. Bedding was spread. Cloaks became blankets. People slept near one another for warmth. Privacy, as modern people imagine it, was scarce. The lord and lady had more private spaces, but even their privacy was limited. The solar or great chamber offered retreat from the hall, a place for family, confidential conversation, accounts, reading, embroidery, music, receiving favored guests, or resting away from the public gaze. But servants came and went. Attendants slept nearby. A noble person was rarely alone in the modern sense. Status brought space, but it also brought constant service, observation, and obligation. The lady of the castle was not merely a decorative figure waiting beside a window. In many households, she held real authority. She managed supplies, supervised domestic staff, oversaw food storage, textiles, clothing, household accounts, children, female servants, hospitality, and the daily practical order of a large residence. If the lord was absent at court, war, pilgrimage, or another estate, she might manage much more. A castle often belonged legally and politically to a male line of power, but the work that kept it functioning could depend heavily on women. The ladies' chamber was a world of its own. Noble women might sew, embroider, read or hear reading, instruct girls, receive visitors, discuss marriages, manage correspondence, plan charity, handle household matters, and supervise work that modern eyes might mistake for leisure. Textile work especially was not trivial. Cloth was wealth. Clothing declared rank. Embroidery could be art, devotion, memory, and political display. A banner, an altar cloth, a wall hanging, a garment, a bed covering, all could carry family identity, religious meaning, and skilled labor. Women also experienced the castle as a place of risk. Childbirth could be dangerous. Marriage was often a matter of alliance, land, and family strategy as much as affection. A noble woman might leave her birthplace young and enter a new household where she had to build authority among strangers. If widowed, she might gain independence or become a prize in another arrangement. If the castle came under threat, she might be responsible for defense, negotiation, or survival. The idea that medieval women were simply passive does not survive close contact with the work a castle required. Children grew up inside this world of rank, noise, religion, and training. A noble child learned early that a castle was not only home, it was a school for status. Boys of aristocratic families were often sent to another household as pages, where they learned manners, service, riding, hunting, basic weapons, music, table conduct, loyalty, and the invisible rules of noble behavior. To serve at a table was not humiliation for a noble boy. It was education. He learned who mattered, how to move, how to listen, when to speak, how to obey, and how to imagine himself one day commanding others. Girls learned household management, piety, needlework, reading in some families, music, conversation, estate awareness, and the skills required to become wives, widows, patrons, and sometimes administrators of considerable responsibility. Their education could be less martial, but not less serious. A great household was a political environment. To survive in it required intelligence. Lower status children lived differently. A kitchen boy learned heat and obedience. A stable boy learned animals and exhaustion. A maid learned work that began before dawn. A servant child might have little time for childhood as modern people imagine it. Yet they too knew the castle intimately. They knew which stair was draftiest, which dog would bite, which cook was dangerous when angry, which steward could be petitioned, which corner of the hall stayed warm longest after the fire burned low. The castle household was a hierarchy, but it was also a web of dependence. The lord needed servants. Servants needed wages, food, protection, and place. Knights needed horses and equipment. Grooms needed orders. Clerks needed literacy. Cooks needed supplies. The chaplain needed a chapel. The lady needed attendance. Children needed instruction. Guests needed hospitality. Prisoners needed guarding. The walls contained not one life, but many lives braided together. Religion structured the day. A castle chapel might be small or elaborate, plain or richly decorated, but its presence mattered. The bell, the mass, the saints' days, fasting seasons, prayers for the dead, confession, blessings, oaths, vows, relics, candles, and the chaplain's words all placed castle life inside a Christian framework. The castle's power was worldly, but it constantly sought divine approval. A lord might be violent, ambitious, and proud, but he still needed prayers. A chapel inside a castle is one of the clearest signs of medieval life. War and worship under the same roof. The religious calendar shaped food and time. Lent changed the kitchen. Fridays changed the table. Feast days brought celebration. Saints' days brought ritual. Christmas and Easter were not merely dates, but seasons of hospitality, obligation, charity, and display. Fish ponds mattered partly because fasting rules mattered. A castle that could produce fish inland was not only solving a practical problem, it was living inside a religious year. Death was also close. People died in castles. Old people, babies, women in childbirth, servants from illness, soldiers from wounds, prisoners in confinement, nobles from fever, accident, or violence. A death in the household changed the rhythm of the place. Bells, prayers, washing, candles, shrouds, burial, masses for the soul. These were not distant church matters. They were part of domestic life. The medieval dead remained socially present through memory, inheritance, prayer, tombs, and obligations. A castle was a place of living bodies, but also of family ghosts. Health inside a castle was a mixture of care, belief, luck, and endurance. A noble household might have access to physicians, herbal knowledge, midwives, barber surgeons, charms, prayers, saints' intercession, and practical remedies. Herbs grew in gardens for cooking and medicine. Wounds could be cleaned, bandaged, stitched, burned, or treated with mixtures whose value ranged from sensible to useless. Teeth hurt. Eyes failed in smoky rooms. Arthritis came from age and damp. Lungs suffered from cold and smoke. Parasites were ordinary. Infection was dangerous. A scratch could become serious. A winter fever could take a child before anyone understood why. The castle was not healthy by modern standards, but neither were its inhabitants ignorant fools. Medieval people noticed patterns. They understood foul smells could signal danger even without germ theory. They valued clean cloth, fresh air when possible, washing hands before meals, draining waste away from living spaces, and keeping food stores protected. They did not live in constant total filth, but their tools were limited, and their standards were different. The garderobe, or privy, shows this mixture of practicality and discomfort. In many castles, the toilet was built into or projecting from the wall, with a drop into a pit, ditch, or shaft. It could be cold, drafty, and unpleasant, but it was also an architectural solution. The waste was directed away from the room. Chutes could be cleaned, pits emptied, and placement considered. The problem was not that no one cared. The problem was that waste in a crowded stone residence is difficult to manage. Smell was part of life, but so was effort to contain it. Water was another constant concern. A castle needed a well or secure water supply, especially under siege. A beautiful hilltop position might be militarily useful and logistically inconvenient. Every bucket of water represented labor unless pipes or conduits helped bring it. People drank water, ale, wine, cider, milk, and other beverages depending on region, rank, safety, and availability. The old idea that everyone avoided water entirely because all water was deadly is too simple. Good water was valued. Bad water was feared. Fermented drinks were common and useful, but the medieval world did not survive by never touching water. Cold may have shaped daily life more than almost anything else. A stone castle holds cold with stubborn patience. Thick walls that stop arrows also resist warmth. A fire heats the space near it, not every corner. Passages remain bitter. Stairwells breathe drafts. Latrines freeze the body. Upper chambers can be miserable in winter. Window glass was expensive and not universal. Shutters kept wind out, but also kept light out. Tapestries helped. Rushes helped a little. Clothing helped most. People wore layers because buildings could not be trusted to make them warm. Linen undergarments, wool gowns, cloaks, hoods, stockings, gloves, fur linings for the wealthy. The body carried its own architecture. To be rich was partly to own warmth. Better cloth, more layers, finer wool, fur, a bed with curtains, a chamber with a fireplace, servants to bring fuel, and the right to sit near the best heat. Beds were important objects. A noble bed could be a piece of wealth: frame, hangings, mattress, sheets, blankets, furs, curtains to keep drafts away and create privacy. Beds could travel with households, because great lords often moved between estates. The castle was not always permanently occupied by the same full household. Power was mobile. A lord might travel with his family, servants, furniture, documents, clothes, and plate, leaving behind a smaller staff to maintain the property. This mobility matters. We imagine a castle as fixed, but medieval aristocratic life often moved from place to place. Estates had to be visited. Stores consumed in one location could be relieved by moving to another. A great household was expensive to feed. Travel allowed a lord to govern, display authority, hunt, attend court, inspect lands, and spread the burden of hospitality across several residences. A castle could be full one season and quiet another. When it was full, entertainment mattered. The castle could be boring. That is important. A winter in a cold fortress, with bad weather, limited travel, short days, and the same faces, could become tedious. Entertainment broke the sameness. Musicians played. Singers performed. Storytellers recited romances, saints' lives, heroic tales, comic pieces, or news from elsewhere. Dice and board games passed time. Chess taught strategy and status. Hunting provided sport, food, and training. Falconry combined patience, skill, beauty, and rank. Dancing marked celebration. Conversation itself was an art. A feast could become theater. The hall changed under cloth, candles, greenery, banners, polished vessels, and ceremonial service. Guests were placed carefully. Courses arrived in order. Musicians filled pauses. Special dishes might surprise the room. A lord's generosity was political. To feed magnificently was to show that one had wealth and knew how to distribute it. Hospitality was never only kindness. It was reputation. The arrival of an important guest transformed the whole castle. Messengers might come ahead. Chambers had to be prepared. Bedding aired. Fresh rushes laid. Food stores checked. Horses accommodated. Servants warned. The high table rearranged. Gifts considered. Musicians summoned. The chapel made ready. A guest could be an ally, rival, superior, suitor, bishop, royal officer, or someone whose favor mattered. Every courtesy had meaning. A poorly placed guest could become offended. A generous welcome could strengthen bonds. A castle was a building, but it was also diplomacy in stone. Below the ceremony was work. The laundry was hard labor. Clothes, sheets, table linens, towels, and cloths had to be washed, beaten, rinsed, dried, mended, folded, and stored. Soap was not a modern convenience used in abundance. Water had to be heated or carried. Stains from grease, smoke, blood, mud, wax, and wine were constant. Clean linen was a sign of status and care. The smell of a household depended partly on invisible washing. The wardrobe was not merely a closet. It could be an administrative department controlling clothing, cloth, valuables, and sometimes records. Textiles were expensive. A cloak, a gown, a hanging, or a bed cover represented material value. Moths, damp, theft, and fire threatened wealth stored in cloth. Someone had to count, guard, repair, and distribute it. The buttery handled drink. The pantry handled bread. The larder kept meat and other stores. The cellar held wine and ale. The bakehouse, brewhouse, dairy, slaughter area, stable, forge, and workshops formed the castle's practical organs. A castle was not just defended by soldiers, it was sustained by specialists. The stable was one of the most important of these spaces. Horses were wealth, transport, status, and military power. A knight's war horse could be extraordinarily valuable. Riding horses, pack horses, cart horses, and palfreys all required feed, grooming, shoeing, care, and space. The smell of stables was part of the castle atmosphere. Hay, dung, sweat, leather, iron, wet mane, old straw. Grooms knew each animal's habits. A lame horse could ruin a journey. A sick horse could cost a fortune. A frightened horse could kill a man. The marshal and master of horse held serious responsibility. Saddles, bridles, harness, bits, horseshoes, carts, pack equipment, and fodder all mattered. Nobility rode. Soldiers rode. Messengers rode. Hunting depended on horses. Travel depended on horses. Without stable labor, aristocratic life slowed to a crawl. The armory had a different smell: oil, metal, leather, dust, old wood. Weapons had to be stored and maintained. Armor rusted if neglected. Bowstrings needed care. Crossbows required mechanisms. Spears, shields, swords, helmets, mail, plate pieces, padded garments, and arrows had to be available when danger came. A castle in peaceful weather still lived with the possibility of violence. The sight of arms was normal. A boy grew up seeing weapons not as museum objects, but as tools, symbols, and promises. Training was part of daily life. Men practiced riding, archery, swordplay, spear handling, wrestling, and the management of armor. Young nobles learned not only how to fight, but how to carry themselves as fighters. Violence was socialized. It had rules, rituals, ideals, and ugly realities. A castle celebrated courage, loyalty, and prowess, but it also knew bruises, broken bones, fear, and the sudden arrival of blood. A siege was the event that revealed what a castle truly was. Most days, the walls were background. During a siege, every part of the building regained its original urgency. Gates were barred, stores counted, wells guarded, animals managed, non-combatants crowded inside, fires watched, arrows prepared, stones and other missiles positioned, messages sent if possible, the chapel filled with prayers. The Lord had to command not only soldiers but hunger, fear, rumor, and time. A castle under siege could be terrifyingly crowded. People from the surrounding area might seek refuge inside, bringing children, possessions, animals, and panic. Food that seemed abundant in normal weeks became a calculation. How much grain? How much salted meat? How much ale? How many mouths? How long before relief? Could the well hold? Could disease break out? Would someone betray a postern gate? Would the enemy dig beneath the wall? Would fire take the roofs? Siege warfare was not constant heroic combat. It was waiting, watching, repairing, listening at night for miners, smelling fear, counting arrows, enduring insults shouted from outside, praying, negotiating, hoping disease struck the attackers first. A castle's strength was partly stone, partly morale. If morale broke, walls could become meaningless. The defenders knew that surrender terms mattered. A castle taken by storm might face slaughter, plunder, or harsh punishment. A castle surrendered by agreement might preserve lives and property. Honor, practicality, hunger, loyalty, and fear all pressed on decisions. The Lord's courage was tested, but so was his judgment. To hold too long could doom everyone. To surrender too soon could stain a name for generations. Not every castle saw a dramatic siege. Many lived decades without attack. But the possibility shaped design and behavior. The well had to be inside. The stores had to exist. The gate had to be guarded. The walls had to be repaired. The people inside lived under a structure built for an event that might never come but could never be ignored. The castle's relationship with law was equally important. The lord might hold court in the hall or in another appointed space. Tenants came with disputes over land, inheritance, debts, boundaries, animals, marriage payments, labor obligations, or offenses. Fines could be levied, oaths sworn, witnesses heard, records kept. The castle was where power became procedure. For the people under its authority, justice might be protection, burden, opportunity, or intimidation depending on the case and the lord. The presence of written records changed the household. Clerks and scribes were essential. They kept accounts of grain, money, wages, rents, repairs, purchases, gifts, livestock, kitchen expenses, travel, and legal proceedings. The castle could be noisy and physical, but it also produced paperwork. Authority had to be remembered. A rent unpaid, a pig owed, a roof repaired, a barrel purchased, a groom paid, a messenger sent, all might enter a record. The chaplain, clerks, and educated household members connected the castle to literacy. Not everyone could read. Many could not. But writing mattered everywhere. A sealed letter could summon a man, settle a dispute, demand payment, arrange marriage, or carry royal orders. The castle was not cut off from wider politics. Roads brought news, and news could change everything. News arrived in fragments. A messenger came mud spattered from another estate. A peddler brought rumors from a town. A pilgrim repeated what he had heard near a shrine. A returning knight spoke of court. A merchant knew prices and wars. A monk carried information from an abbey. In a world without instant communication, the castle listened carefully. Who had died? Who had married? Which lord had rebelled? Was the king moving north? Had plague appeared? Was a bridge washed out? Had a nearby castle changed hands? The hall became a place where information was weighed. Not all news was true. Rumor had to be tested against the messenger's reliability, the seal on a letter, the interests of the speaker, and the likelihood of the event. A castle lived by information as much as by grain. The seasons changed everything. Spring brought mud, repairs, lambing, planting, movement, and the relief of longer light. Summer brought heat in kitchens, work in fields, travel, hunting, visitors, military activity, building projects, and sometimes dust. Autumn brought harvest, slaughtering, salting, brewing, storing, accounting, and preparation for cold. Winter brought enclosure, dark mornings, frozen yards, damp wool, smoke, boredom, illness, and the comfort of fire when fire could be kept. A castle in winter was a hard place. The stones seemed to breathe cold. Doors swelled. Rushes dampened. Latrines were miserable. Horses needed care. Fuel mattered. The hall fire became the center of life because heat gathered people as surely as authority did. Around the fire, stories lengthened. Work slowed in some areas and intensified in others. Clothing grew heavier. Tempers could shorten. Faith became more necessary. Night changed the castle more completely than any modern city allows us to understand. Without electric light, darkness had weight. Candles were expensive. Tallow smelled. Beeswax was better but dearer. Torches smoked. Lamps needed oil. Firelight moved, flickered, hid corners, and made faces appear and vanish. A night hall was not simply a dim version of day. It was another world. The ceiling disappeared. The walls shifted in shadow. Sounds became larger. The watch mattered after dark. Gates closed. A guard listened from the wall. Dogs reacted to noises humans missed. A late knock at the gate was serious. Was it a traveler, a messenger, a trick, a neighbor in distress? The garden matters because it shows that castle life was not only defense and display. Medieval people wanted beauty. They loved scent, color, birdsong, shade, water, flowers, and enclosed green spaces. A castle garden could be practical, producing herbs and food, but it could also be symbolic, a controlled piece of nature inside a violent world. The walls kept danger out, and within them a garden suggested order, pleasure, and peace. The chapel suggested another kind of order. There, stones softened under candlelight. The noise of the hall gave way to chant or murmured prayer. The Lord who commanded men knelt before God. The lady prayed for children, the dead, the sick, the absent, the soul. Servants attended Mass with tired bodies. The chaplain spoke words repeated across Christendom. The castle was local, but religion made it part of something vast. A prayer said in a small chapel joined the castle to monasteries, cathedrals, villages, pilgrim roads, Rome, Jerusalem, and heaven. Pilgrimage also touched castle life. Lords and ladies might endow chapels, give alms, sponsor masses, donate to monasteries, or go on pilgrimage. A relic could draw attention. A saint's feast could change the household rhythm. Religious devotion was not separate from politics, guilt, fear, gratitude, and hope. A man who had ordered violence might pay for prayers. A woman who survived childbirth might give thanks. A child promised to a religious house might leave the castle entirely. The castle was therefore not one world but several overlapping worlds: military, domestic, religious, economic, legal, agricultural, emotional, and symbolic. The lower servants saw one castle. The lady saw another. The lord saw another. A prisoner saw another. A guest saw another. A child saw another. A peasant summoned to court saw another. A guard on the tower at midnight saw another. A cook sweating over the fire saw another. The stones were the same, but the life inside them depended on where one stood. A prisoner in a castle might experience stone differently from everyone else. Castles often contained rooms used for confinement, ranging from relatively tolerable chambers for noble captives to dark, cold, miserable spaces for those with less status. Imprisonment in the medieval world was not always intended as long-term punishment in the modern sense. It could hold someone for ransom, trial, negotiation, coercion, or security. A noble prisoner might dine decently and write letters. A poor prisoner might simply suffer. Rank followed people even into captivity. Ransom was part of aristocratic warfare. Capturing a valuable enemy could be profitable. A knight taken in battle might be worth more alive than dead. Castles held such men until money, exchange, or agreement released them. This made warfare both brutal and transactional. Honor and profit could sit at the same table. Fire was one of the castle's constant fears. Stone walls did not mean a castle could not burn. Roofs, floors, doors, furniture, thatch in outer buildings, kitchens, barns, hay, straw, cloth, and wooden hoardings could catch flame. A kitchen accident, a dropped candle, a siege missile, a spark in dry weather, all could threaten lives and supplies. People watched fires carefully because fire was warmth, food, light, and destruction in one element. Repair was never-ending. Walls cracked, roofs leaked, timber rotted, hinges failed, walls needed care, ditches silted, limewash faded, stairs wore down, glass broke, plaster fell. A castle that looks permanent from a distance required constant human attention. Permanence was labor repeated over generations. Builders and craftsmen shaped castle life even after construction ended. Masons, carpenters, plasterers, tilers, glaziers, smiths, painters, ditchers, quarrymen, and laborers all left marks in stone and wood. The Lord's command might begin a tower, but anonymous hands made it rise. The castle was an object of power, but also an object of work. The evolution of castles across the Middle Ages changed the way people lived inside them. Early earth and timber fortifications could be quick to build and rough to inhabit. Stone keeps gave strength, but often little comfort. Later castles developed more chambers, better fireplaces, larger windows and safer areas, more specialized service spaces, more private apartments, and more attention to domestic life. By the late Middle Ages, some castles were becoming less like pure fortresses and more like fortified residences designed to display noble comfort as much as military readiness. This shift reflected changes in warfare and politics. Stronger kings, changing military technology, cannon, more centralized administration, and new ideals of aristocratic life gradually altered what great people wanted from their homes. A wall that once resisted siege engines could be vulnerable to artillery. A private war that once seemed possible could become politically dangerous. Comfort and display began to matter more. The castle did not vanish overnight, but its meaning changed. Still, during the centuries when castles mattered most, they shaped imagination because they made power visible. A lord in a castle was not simply wealthy. He was elevated, enclosed, guarded, served, approached, petitioned, feared, and remembered. The building taught everyone how to behave before its owner. That lesson began in childhood for those born inside. A young noble learned that the world had ranks. He saw his father at the high table, his mother managing household authority, priests blessing, servants bowing, grooms obeying, tenants waiting, prisoners guarded, guests honored, messengers admitted, beggars dismissed or fed, and soldiers armed. The castle did not need to explain society. It performed society every day. For servants, the performance was work. A scullion might spend hours washing pots blackened by smoke. A maid might carry linen up a freezing stair. A page might stand hungry while others ate. A groom might sleep near the stables. A cook might rise before dawn. Their bodies carried the castle. The noble family gave it a name, but servants gave it motion. Some servants found opportunity there. A skilled household officer could gain influence. A literate clerk could rise. A trusted steward could control access and information. A page could become a knight. A maid could gain protection, wages, marriage prospects, or a place in a larger household network. The castle could exploit, but it could also provide structure, food, status, and connection. The household was full of observation. Everyone watched everyone. Who received favor? Who was angry? Which servant had failed? Which guest was honored? Which young person was admired? Which marriage was being discussed? Which rumor had reached the Lord? In such a dense social world, privacy was limited and reputation mattered intensely. A careless word could travel faster than a writer. The castle also produced memory. A great hall remembered feasts, judgments, quarrels, and deaths. A chapel remembered prayers. A chamber remembered births. A stair remembered footsteps. A battlement remembered alarms. A garden remembered conversations no record kept. The stones did not speak, but people attached meaning to places. Generations could live under the same roof, each adding memory to the walls. Modern ruins hide much of this because they remove the people. Without people, a castle becomes geometry, towers, walls, arches, stairs. But with people restored in imagination, every space fills. The kitchen burns. The hall eats. The chapel prays. The stable breathes. The gate judges. The wall watches. The garderobe stinks. The solar whispers. The storehouse counts. The courtyard moves. To walk through a castle honestly is to keep both truths together. It was impressive and it was uncomfortable. It was beautiful and it smelled. It protected and it oppressed. It gathered families and it separated ranks. It offered hospitality and it threatened violence. It was home to some, workplace to others, prison to a few, symbol to all. Perhaps the most surprising thing about life inside a medieval castle is not how strange it was, but how recognizable it becomes when the stone romance is removed. People wanted warmth, food, status, love, safety, entertainment, faith, privacy, and a future for their children. They feared illness, shame, hunger, violence, loneliness, bad harvests, bad lords, bad luck, and death. Their world was organized differently, but their needs were human. A servant carrying water up a stair wanted the day to end. A lady waiting for news from her husband wanted the messenger to arrive. A boy learning to serve at table wanted not to spill wine in front of the high table. A cook wanted the roast not to burn. A guard wanted his watch to pass without alarm. A prisoner wanted a door opened. A child wanted the dogs to play. A chaplain wanted the dying man to confess. A lord wanted his name to remain. The castle contained all of them. Now imagine one full day. Before dawn, the watch changes. The man coming down from the tower is stiff with cold. The man going up pulls his cloak tighter and mutters because the wind is worse above the gate. In the kitchen, someone has already stirred embers back to life. In the stable, a horse stamps and shakes its head. In the hall, bodies sleep under cloaks near the last heat of the fire. A dog lifts its head, decides nothing important is happening, and sleeps again. The chapel bell sounds, not loud enough to shake the walls, but enough to remind the household that the day belongs first to God. Servants rise. Bedding is rolled. Rushes are disturbed. Someone coughs hard in the cold air. A boy hurries with water. A maid folds cloth. The cook shouts for more wood. The gate is opened after the proper checks, and the outside world begins to enter. Morning brings work. The Lord hears a matter of rents. The steward reviews supplies. The lady speaks with the keeper of linen and the woman responsible for stores. A clerk notes repairs needed near the roof. A groom reports that one horse is lame. The chaplain teaches a child letters. A mason argues about payment. A messenger arrives with news from another lord. The kitchen prepares the main meal. The castle is awake now, and every part of it demands something. At dinner, the hall fills. Water for hands, bread, ale, meat or fish, depending on day and season, pottage, sauce, noise rising under the roof. The Lord sits above. The hall watches him. He speaks to a guest. A small decision made at the high table may affect a village below the hill. A servant spills a little and reddens. Someone laughs. Someone else notices who did not laugh. A song begins. The dogs wait. Afternoon stretches. Men practice in the yard. A page runs an errand. The lady withdraws to her chamber. The chaplain visits someone sick. The cook plans supper. In the garden, if the season allows, bees move among herbs. Outside the walls, peasants work under the castle's shadow. Inside, the castle consumes what the land produces and sends commands back down the road. Evening returns people to the hall. The light changes. Candles are lit. The fire grows important. Stories travel with the darkness. A guest speaks of trouble on a road. Someone mentions a marriage. Someone asks whether the king will call men to war. At the lower tables, servants listen while pretending not to listen. The castle is never only itself. It is tied to a kingdom of decisions made elsewhere. Night closes the gate. The hall empties slowly. The high table withdraws first. Servants clear. Dogs nose the rushes. The kitchen is secured. Fires are banked. The lord and lady go to their chamber. The watch takes its place. The castle becomes quieter, but not silent. It breathes through sleeping people, animals, embers, wind, and stone. Above the battlements, the stars are sharp. The village below is dark. The road is empty. For a few hours, the castle seems exactly what it was built to seem, permanent. But nothing inside it is permanent. The people will age. The Lord will die. The children will inherit, marry, leave, or be buried. The servants will be replaced. The banners will fade. The kitchen fires will go out. The gate will rot and be repaired. A wall will crack. A war will come or not come. A new fashion will change the chambers. A later age will find the rooms too cold, too old, too inconvenient. The castle will become a residence, a ruin, a quarry, a monument, a museum, a dream. What remains is stone, and even stone keeps only part of the truth. The deeper truth is the life that once pressed against it. Warm hands on cold walls, voices in the hall, smoke under the roof, horses in the yard, prayers in the chapel, fear at the gate, bread on the table, linen folded in chests, children learning rank before they understood the word, servants carrying the day from dawn to dark. The medieval castle was not a fantasy. It was a living machine of power and shelter, built from stone and obligation. It made rank visible, protected people by value, fed them by status, warmed them unevenly, washed them constantly, and gave them a world so complete that those born inside it could hardly imagine life arranged another way. There is another way to understand the castle, through the objects people touched every day. A key was power. The person who held the key to a gate, chest, storehouse, wardrobe, prison room, wine cellar, or private chamber held more than metal. He or she held access. Medieval households were full of locked spaces because valuables were portable and temptation was ordinary. Cloth, silver vessels, spices, documents, weapons, wax, coins, and fine clothing needed protection. A key hanging from a belt could be a sign of trust, as clear as any title. A chest was memory. Documents lay in chests. Linens lay in chests. Marriage portions, jewels, letters, seals, candles, spices, books, vestments, and medicines could lie in chests. A household moved by packing chests. A woman entering marriage might bring chests. A lord traveling to another estate might send chests ahead. The castle's fixed walls contained a mobile life, and the chest made that movement possible. A candle was time. It measured evening by disappearing. It allowed prayer after sunset, writing in chambers, late conversation, care for the sick, and movement through stairways that would otherwise become dangerous. Wax candles were better, cleaner, and more expensive than tallow. To have many candles burning was a kind of splendor. To sit in dimness was ordinary. The medieval night was not empty, but light had to be paid for. A cloak was architecture. It made a body habitable. A person sitting near a wall in January needed cloth as much as stone needed mortar. People wrapped themselves, layered themselves, slept under themselves, traveled in clothing heavy with weather. Modern rooms try to warm the air. Medieval people often warmed the body directly and accepted that the room would remain cold. A knife was personal. It cut food, trimmed cord, shaped wood, cleaned nails, prepared small tasks, and could become a weapon. Many people carried knives because daily life required cutting. Tools and weapons were not always separate categories. In a castle, where hierarchy was strict but bodies were close together, the ordinary presence of knives gave daily life a quiet edge. A bell was authority over time. The chapel bell, the gate bell, the alarm, the call to gather, the signal for danger, the marking of hours, sound traveled where written orders could not. A bell could pull a scattered household into one rhythm. It could also make fear instant. The difference between a normal bell and an alarm bell was felt in the stomach before it was understood by the mind. The castle's walls shaped movement, but its objects shaped behavior. Consider the stairs. Many castle stairs were narrow, twisting, and steep, especially in towers. They controlled the body. A person had to climb carefully. Furniture was difficult to move. Armed men advancing upward would be slowed. Someone descending in darkness had to know the steps or risk a fall. Servants carrying water, linen, food, fuel, and messages went up and down those stairs constantly. A noble guest might notice their inconvenience. A servant felt them in the knees. Passageways mattered too. A castle was not arranged for modern comfort. Rooms could open into rooms. Chambers could be reached through other chambers. Service movement crossed noble movement. A person of rank might try to withdraw, but the building itself often resisted privacy. The later development of more specialized apartments and corridors changed this slowly, but for much of the Middle Ages, domestic life remained porous. People heard one another, smelled one another, stepped around one another, and knew more than modern neighbors might know. Tapestries softened this world. They were not merely decorative. They helped block drafts, covered bare walls, displayed wealth, told sacred or heroic subjects, and made rooms feel less like stone containers. A wall hanging could transform a cold chamber into a place of color. Hunting scenes, saints, flowers, heraldic patterns, biblical figures, romances, and woven forests could surround the people who sat inside. In a dark season, a tapestry was another kind of window. Rushes on the hall floor also changed the room. They provided some insulation, absorbed spills, softened footsteps, and could be mixed with sweet-smelling herbs. When fresh, they improved the space. When neglected, they became unpleasant. The truth of rushes lies between the romantic and the grotesque. They were practical. They were not modern flooring. Their condition depended on household discipline, wealth, season, and the attention of those responsible for cleaning. Cleaning was constant, but never finished. Ash had to be removed, dishes scrubbed, tables wiped, floors swept, rushes changed, bedding aired, pots scoured, latrines maintained, stables mucked, yard mud controlled, clothing brushed, fleas fought, rodents trapped, storehouses protected from damp and vermin. A castle did not stay livable by nobility alone. It stayed livable because many people did repetitive, tiring work that left little trace in chronicles. Smell is one of the hardest parts of the medieval castle to recover because modern life has trained us out of it. The castle did not have one smell. It had zones. The kitchen smelled of smoke, broth, roasting fat, onions, herbs, ale, sourness, and hot iron. The stable smelled of hay, manure, leather, animal heat, damp straw, and oats. The chapel smelled of wax, incense when used, stone dust, old wood, and bodies gathered close. Chambers smelled of wool, linen, smoke, perfume if available, rushes, sweat, and sometimes flowers or herbs. The yard smelled different after rain than after summer heat. The garderobe announced itself. The storehouse smelled of grain, apples, barrels, salted meat, cheese, and mice if the keepers failed. To live there was to know these smells without thinking of them as historical detail. They were simply the world. Sound worked the same way. The castle was never as quiet as a ruin. Even in the night, it creaked, breathed, shifted, and muttered. By day, the sound could be overwhelming. Metal on metal, hooves on stone, wheels, shouting, chopping, dogs, doors, bells, prayer, laughter, crying, music, argument, wind, fire, and rain against shutters. Silence in such a place might feel suspicious. Silence could mean everyone was at mass, or the household had traveled, or danger was approaching. Weather entered constantly. Rain turned yards to mud. Wind found every weakness in shutters and doors. Snow made the castle beautiful from outside and miserable within. Summer heat made kitchens brutal and stored food vulnerable. Autumn damp crept into cloth. Spring thaw loosened paths and filled ditches. The castle was strong against human attack, but not separate from weather. Weather lived inside it through cold stone, wet boots, smoky fires, and the state of everyone's mood. The Lord's day, if he was present, moved through obligation. He might hear reports from the steward, speak with tenants, receive a messenger, inspect horses, review accounts, hunt, train, dine publicly, judge a dispute, meet a priest, speak privately with his wife, write or dictate letters, plan a journey, welcome a guest, command repairs, or prepare for war. His life was privileged, but not idle. A negligent lord endangered income, reputation, defense, and household order. Nobility demanded performance. The lady's day could be equally crowded. She might supervise stores, speak to servants, arrange clothing, oversee children's education, manage hospitality, deal with sick household members, plan charity, receive women from neighboring families, handle correspondence, preserve family memory, and maintain the dignity expected of her rank. She also had to be visible at the right moments and withdrawn at the right moments. Too little presence weakened authority. Too much informality could invite disrespect. Her power required judgment. The steward's day was full of trouble. Something was always short, late, broken, disputed, spoiled, expensive, or misunderstood. The steward stood between lordly expectation and practical reality. He needed authority over servants, knowledge of supplies, skill with accounts, and enough political tact not to offend those above him while commanding those below. A great household could not function without such people, but their success often appears in records only as absence. No crisis, no scandal, no shortage, no collapse. The cook's day began early and ended with exhaustion. Food had to arrive at the hall, not merely edible, but timed to ceremony. A roast done too soon lost quality. A sauce ruined by smoke or curdling could embarrass the kitchen. A feast required planning across days. Fresh meat, salted meat, fish, bread, pastry, broth, pies, vegetables, fruits, sweets, wine, ale, serving vessels, and firewood all had to be coordinated. Cooking for a castle was logistics under heat. The chaplain carried another kind of burden. He served God, but also the household. He might be teacher, secretary, confessor, record keeper, advisor, messenger, and witness. He blessed, wrote, read, listened, corrected, comforted, and sometimes mediated. In an age when literacy was not universal, a literate priest could hold quiet power. He knew sins, letters, wills, fears, and promises. The garrison lived partly apart from the domestic household and partly within it. Soldiers had their own habits, loyalties, jokes, boredom, discipline, and resentments. A castle with too few soldiers looked weak. A castle with too many soldiers strained supplies and peace. Armed men can protect a household, but they also change its atmosphere. Their presence reminds everyone that the building's hospitality rests on force. The castle's children watched all this and learned from it before anyone formally taught them. A child learns hierarchy by seeing who sits where. A child learns fear by noticing whose arrival makes adults fall silent. A child learns wealth by touching cloth, cups, horses, and books. A child learns danger from the way gates are closed at night. The castle educated through repetition. There were festivals when repetition broke. At Christmas, the hall might become brighter, fuller, more generous. Greenery could be brought in, special food prepared, guests received, games played, gifts exchanged. The Lord's ability to provide became part of celebration. At Easter, after the long discipline of Lent, food and joy returned with spiritual force. Weddings filled the castle with alliance, display, and calculation. A birth brought relief and future anxiety. A funeral reversed the house's energy, turning movement toward prayer, memory, and inheritance. Marriage especially revealed the castle's political nature. A noble marriage was personal, but also territorial, financial, and strategic. Contracts mattered. Dowries mattered. Lands mattered. Children mattered before they existed. A bride entering a castle might bring wealth, allies, servants, expectations, and vulnerability. Love could grow, but marriage did not depend on love to be important. The castle absorbed marriages as part of its continuity. Hospitality could be generous, but it could also be exhausting. A traveling noble with companions, servants, horses, and baggage placed sudden demands on food, space, bedding, and staff. Yet refusing hospitality to the wrong person could damage reputation. Medieval power moved through visits. A castle had to be ready to become larger than itself whenever important company appeared. The hunt was one of the great noble activities connected to castle life. Hunting was sport, training, status, food, and ritual. It taught riding, endurance, weapon handling, command of dogs, reading of landscape, and aristocratic fellowship. Deer parks and forests were controlled spaces where noble privilege became visible. Not everyone could hunt freely. Game laws marked power. A peasant taking the lord's deer was not merely stealing meat. He was crossing a social boundary. Falconry was even more refined. Hawks and falcons required patience, training, care, and specialized knowledge. Birds of prey became extensions of rank and temperament. To handle one well showed discipline. To own fine birds showed wealth. A castle with mews, falconers, and hunting equipment carried the rhythm of aristocratic leisure alongside military duty. Leisure itself was not the same for everyone. The lord's leisure might be hunting. The ladies' might be music, reading, conversation, embroidery, gardens, or overseeing artistic work. A knight's leisure might be dice, drinking, wrestling, or boasting. A servant's leisure might be a few stolen minutes near warmth. A child's leisure might be play in a courtyard until called back to training or service. Time belonged unequally to different ranks. Clothing made these ranks visible. Fine cloth, fur, embroidery, belts, brooches, rings, colors, sleeve shapes, headdresses, shoes, and the cleanliness of linen all communicated status. A person's body became a public text. Servants had garments appropriate to service. Nobles dressed to be recognized as nobles. Clergy dressed for office. Mourning, celebration, travel, court appearance, and ordinary household life all required different forms of presentation. Laundry and clothing care therefore had social meaning. A stained sleeve at the wrong moment could embarrass. Fresh linen could signal refinement. Fur could signal wealth. A household unable to maintain clothing looked diminished. In a castle, dignity had to be washed, brushed, mended, and stored. Food storage was another kind of dignity. A lord who could feed guests in lean months showed strength. Salted meat, smoked fish, grain, dried peas, beans, cheese, apples, ale, wine, and preserved fruits helped bridge seasons. But stored food attracted pests. Rats, mice, insects, damp, mold, theft, and poor accounting could destroy security. The storekeeper's work was not glorious, but hunger made it essential. Bread was central. It was not merely a side dish. It was the foundation of diet and symbol. The quality of bread varied by rank. Fine white bread for the wealthy, coarser darker bread for others, depending on grain and status. Bread trenchers could absorb sauces before being eaten or given away. The bakehouse connected field, mill, oven, table, and charity. A castle without bread would feel immediately endangered. Ale and wine carried their own hierarchy. Ale was common, nourishing, and locally produced in many regions. Wine was more prestigious where it had to be imported or reserved for higher tables. The buttery and cellar held more than drink. They held social distinction. Who drank what, from what vessel, and in what quantity mattered. Vessels themselves mattered. Wooden bowls, ceramic jugs, pewter, silver, glass, horn, leather, and fine imported objects all indicated rank and setting. A silver cup could be wealth in the hand. A glass vessel might be admired for rarity. Tableware had to be counted because it could be stolen, lost, pawned, gifted, or melted. The end of a feast was also an accounting. Accounting gave the castle a second life on parchment. The grand life of the hall depended on numbers. How much grain came in, how much fish was bought, how many candles used, how much cloth issued, what wages owed, what repairs cost, what livestock died, what rents unpaid, what gifts given. Medieval castles were not vague romantic communities. They were audited realities. Someone counted. Someone checked. Someone was blamed when accounts did not balance. The village knew these numbers differently. To villagers, the castle might mean dues, court days, work obligations, protection, market access, employment, justice, punishment, charity, resentment, pride, or fear. The castle could dominate the landscape visually and legally. A wedding in the hall might mean little to a peasant whose concern was a bad harvest. A siege might make the castle a refuge. A cruel lord could make it a shadow. Power was personal. Laws existed, customs existed, church teachings existed, royal authority existed, but much depended on the character of local lordship. A generous lord and a grasping lord did not produce the same atmosphere. A competent lady and a negligent lady did not produce the same household. A fair steward and a corrupt steward changed daily life for everyone below them. This is why castle life cannot be reduced to architecture. The same walls could hold very different worlds depending on who ruled them. One castle might be famous for hospitality, another for harshness, one for piety, another for disorder, one for music and learning, another for military readiness. Stone gives shape, but people give character. Education and culture could flourish in castles more than the rough image of the Middle Ages suggests. Books were expensive, but they existed. Psalters, romances, saints' lives, chronicles, legal texts, devotional books, household manuals, medical texts, letters, and accounts might be read aloud or privately, depending on literacy and setting. Reading aloud mattered because a text could belong to a group even when only one person read it. A hall or chamber could become a place of shared imagination. Romance literature shaped noble ideals. Stories of Arthur, Charlemagne's warriors, Tristan and Isolde, saints, crusaders, loyal knights, treacherous enemies, faithful ladies, enchanted forests, quests, honor, and betrayal moved through aristocratic households. These tales did not simply entertain. They taught people how to imagine courage, love, loyalty, shame, and fame. The castle heard stories about castles and learned to see itself through them. Music did something similar. A song could carry news, memory, devotion, satire, or longing. Traveling performers brought outside voices into the hall. Local musicians gave rhythm to meals and celebrations. Dance allowed bodies to express order and pleasure under rules. In a world where many people could not read, performance carried culture. Yet the castle was also full of silence enforced by rank. Not everyone could speak freely. A servant might know a secret and be unable to mention it. A woman might understand a danger and need to communicate indirectly. A child might hear adult plans and be told nothing. A prisoner might shout and be ignored. Power decides whose voice becomes record and whose voice disappears. This is why the small details matter. They let us hear lives that grand accounts often miss. The boy turning a spit, the woman washing linen, the old guard with bad knees, the maid who knows which guest is cruel, the chaplain who has heard too much, the groom who loves one horse more than he should, the page who dreams of knighthood while carrying someone else's cup, the cook whose temper holds the kitchen together, the lady counting stores in a winter of poor harvest. These are not background figures. They are the castle's bloodstream. The most powerful person in the castle depended on them all. A lord without servants could not maintain status. A lady without attendants could not manage the household. A knight without a groom lost mobility. A chapel without a priest lost ritual. A kitchen without scullions collapsed. A stable without mucking became sickness. A wall without masons decayed. A record without a clerk vanished. Power appears at the high table, but it is carried from below. That truth is easy to miss because castles were designed to make power look natural. The high walls, the towers, the dais, the heraldry, the guards, the rituals, the seating, the gates, all made hierarchy feel built into the earth itself. But hierarchy had to be performed every day or it weakened. A lord had to appear lordly. Servants had to serve. Guests had to recognize rank. Tenants had to attend court. The castle was a theater that never fully closed. Even rebellion or disorder had to move through this theater. A servant stealing from stores broke more than a rule. He violated trust. A garrison refusing duty threatened the building's purpose. A tenant resisting dues challenged authority. A noble guest insulting seating arrangements could damage alliance. A rumor about the lord's weakness could spread beyond the walls. The castle seemed strong, but its social order was delicate. The architecture tried to control that delicacy. The lord's chamber was set apart. The chapel gave moral order. The gate controlled entry. The hall displayed rank. The walls separated inside from outside. The keep offered a final refuge. But no building can fully control human emotion. Jealousy, ambition, love, resentment, fatigue, lust, grief, fear, hunger, and hope all lived inside the walls too. There were love affairs in castles, wanted and unwanted. There were marriages of strategy and marriages that became tender. There were children born from duty and from desire. There were servants who loved across rank and suffered for it. There were widows who guarded memory and property. There were young knights who confused romance with entitlement. There were songs about love sung in halls where actual marriages were being negotiated for land. Human life did not become simple because it wore medieval clothing. A castle could be lonely even when crowded. A noble woman far from her birth family might live among many people and still feel alone. A lord carrying responsibility might be surrounded by servants and trust few. A child sent away as a page might sleep in a hall full of bodies and miss home silently. A prisoner might hear laughter through walls. Crowding does not guarantee closeness. At the same time, closeness could create deep bonds. People who ate together daily, survived winters together, endured danger together, served the same household, and watched one another grow old could become attached in ways that formal records barely show. A household was not a modern family, but it could create loyalties as strong as blood. The word family itself once stretched wider than the modern private unit. The lord's household included many who were not kin, but whose lives were tied to his fortune. The castle's outer appearance often concealed this emotional complexity. From a distance, towers and walls look simple. Inside, every room holds relationships. The gatehouse holds suspicion. The hall holds rank. The kitchen holds pressure. The stable holds skill. The chapel holds fear and hope. The solar holds privacy carefully rationed. The garden holds the desire for peace. The armory holds violence waiting. The storehouse holds survival. The well holds endurance. The prison room holds bargaining and despair. The battlements hold vigilance. The stairs hold labor. The bedchamber holds birth, marriage, sleep, sickness, and sometimes death. A medieval castle was a map of human needs under pressure. It is tempting to ask whether people were happy there. The answer is not one answer. A lord after a successful hunt, surrounded by guests and food, might feel the world arranged exactly as it should be. A kitchen boy with burned hands might not. A lady who managed the household well and commanded respect might find purpose. A girl promised into marriage elsewhere might feel dread. A guard on a cold tower might curse the same walls that a villager prayed would shelter him during war. The castle's meaning changed with one's place in it. Comfort itself was relative. To a modern person, the castle seems cold, smoky, dark, and dirty. To someone accustomed to a peasant cottage, the hall of a wealthy lord might seem astonishing. More food, more cloth, more protection, more light, more music, more contact with important people. The question is not whether castle life met modern standards. It did not. The question is how it compared with the expectations and alternatives of its own world. For many, service in a great household could be better than poverty outside it. For others, castle authority could be oppressive. History resists single judgment because life resisted it first. The castle's decline as a military necessity did not erase its hold on imagination. Once artillery, stronger monarchies, and changing political conditions made private fortresses less central, many castles were altered, abandoned, domesticated, romanticized, or ruined. Some became comfortable residences. Some were quarried for stone. Some became symbols of old nobility. Some became prisons. Some became tourist dreams. Time changed their function but increased their mystery. Ruins are powerful because they invite us to supply what is missing. A broken hall asks us to imagine the table. A roofless chapel asks us to imagine the candle. A stair worn by feet asks us to imagine the bodies. A garderobe shaft asks us to imagine the less poetic truth. A fireplace asks us to imagine cold. A tower asks us to imagine watching. But imagination must be disciplined. The castle was not a fantasy of knights and ladies drifting through spotless rooms. Nor was it only a pit of darkness and disease. It was a working aristocratic household inside a defensive shell. Its beauty came with labor. Its protection came with control. Its ceremony came with inequality. Its warmth came in patches. Its life was intense because so many functions were forced into one enclosed world. That intensity is what makes it worth hearing about. To enter a medieval castle fully is to enter a world where nothing is merely itself. Food is rank. Clothing is identity. A room is access. A key is trust. A horse is status. A bed is wealth. A wall is power. A chapel is fear of death. A feast is politics. A garden is relief. A privy is engineering. A fire is survival. A gate is judgment. A bell is time. A hall is society. And beneath all of it are human bodies trying to get through the day. Cold hands. Hungry stomachs. Proud faces. Tired feet. Smoke-reddened eyes. Children half asleep at prayers. Men pretending not to be afraid. Women carrying more authority than later stories admit. Servants remembering every slight. Cooks saving a meal from disaster. Guards counting hours. Priests counting sins. Clerks counting grain. Dogs counting dropped bones. This is the medieval castle without the painted mist. Harder, warmer, uglier, richer, stranger, and more alive. One more evening settles over it. The outer fields darken first. The road loses its edges. The village fires appear below, small and separate. Inside the walls, the last tasks gather urgency. Animals are secured. Doors checked. Stores closed. The kitchen quiets slowly, like a beast after feeding. The hall glows. The high table withdraws. Servants move through shadow. A child is carried asleep. Someone laughs in a chamber. Someone prays. Someone coughs. Someone at the gate looks out and sees nothing moving. The castle has survived another day. For the people inside, that is not a historical fact. It is simply life. The castle also changed with the place where it stood. A border castle was not the same as a castle deep inside settled land. On a frontier, walls mattered more, watchfulness was sharper, and the household lived with a stronger awareness that politics might become violence quickly. A castle controlling a river crossing watched trade and armies alike. A castle above a road controlled movement. A coastal castle listened for ships. A mountain castle looked over passes where weather and war both arrived without warning. The shape of daily life followed the landscape. In some places, the castle guarded against external enemies. In others, it controlled local people. Often it did both. A fortress in conquered territory spoke a harder language than an old family seat in a peaceful region. Its walls said not only "we are safe," but "you are watched." Soldiers there were not decorative. They were occupation made visible. The people living nearby understood this perfectly. A castle could mean protection from raiders, but it could also mean taxes, forced labor, seizure of supplies, and the presence of armed men. A lord might present himself as guardian of the land, and sometimes he truly was. But guardianship and domination can wear the same armor. From the village below, the castle's towers might look reassuring in one season and oppressive in another. Markets could grow near castles because power draws trade. People came where protection, demand, and roads met. A castle household needed food, cloth, tools, animals, wax, salt, iron, leather, pottery, and labor. That need created opportunity. Craftsmen, brewers, bakers, butchers, carters, masons, and merchants all had reasons to live close enough to serve the castle. The fortress became an economic engine, whether loved or resented. The castle's demands also tied it to woodland. Wood heated fires, repaired buildings, made carts, supplied handles, built scaffolding, supported roofs, fed ovens, and provided charcoal for smithing. A castle of stone still devoured trees. Forests around a great household were not only wild places for hunting. They were managed stores of fuel, timber, game, grazing, and status. Stone, too, had a life before the wall. It came from quarries. Men cut it, hauled it, shaped it, lifted it, mortared it, and placed it where the Lord's design demanded. A castle wall that seems inevitable after centuries was once a loud, dangerous building site. Oxen strained, ropes snapped, scaffolds shook, lime burned skin. A mason judged angles by eye and rule. A laborer carried more weight than his name would ever carry in history. The building of a castle could reshape a whole region. It required money, labor, materials, transport, planning, and authority. It could impose burdens on local communities while promising security later. A new tower on a hill was not simply construction. It was a political event. Once built, the castle taught the body how to move through power. A visitor did not wander freely. He waited, was admitted, crossed courts, climbed stairs, passed guards, entered halls, stood until recognized, and spoke when allowed. Architecture slowed him down and made him feel the distance between himself and the Lord. This was not accidental. The experience of approaching authority was part of authority. Even smell could become hierarchy. The Lord's chamber might have better rushes, herbs, clean linen, warmer hangings, sweeter smoke, and fewer bodies. The kitchen boy smelled of grease. The groom smelled of horses. The smith smelled of coal and metal. The chaplain smelled of wax and wool. The lady might use scented waters, herbs, or flowers when available. Rank could be smelled as well as seen. The same was true of touch. The Lord touched polished wood, fine cloth, metalwork, books, smooth cups, leather reins, warm fur. A scullion touched cold water, greasy pots, ash, rough boards, and burned iron. A mason touched stone. A clerk touched parchment and wax. A guard touched spear shafts and damp battlements. Castle life was not one physical experience shared equally by all. Each rank had its own textures. The chapel gave some shared ground, but even their hierarchy remained. The lord and lady might have privileged places. The household might stand in assigned order. The chaplain served all souls, but lived within rank. Before God, medieval teaching insisted on humility. Inside the castle, humility still stood in assigned places. Confession made the castle inward. A lord could command in the hall, but in confession he knelt under another kind of judgment. A lady could manage the household, but she too carried fears before God. A servant could not easily speak against superiors in public, but might confess anger, theft, desire, despair, or resentment. The chapel held hidden histories that no account roll records. Illness could rearrange hierarchy for a time. A powerful lord in bed with fever became dependent on servants, physicians, priests, and women skilled in care. A noble child's sickness could throw the entire household into anxiety. A servant's sickness might be treated with less attention, but if disease spread, everyone cared. The body has a way of reminding hierarchies that flesh is common. Childbirth especially exposed the limits of power. Noble rank could provide better bedding, attendance, prayers, warmed rooms, and experienced women, but it could not remove danger. The birth of an heir could bring immense relief. The death of mother or child could darken the castle for months. Behind dynastic language were rooms of pain, blood, fear, whispered instructions, holy objects, and women doing work on which inheritance depended. Infancy was fragile. Children died. The castle might celebrate birth with bells, gifts, and feasting, then bury the same child before the year turned. This closeness to death shaped religious life deeply. Prayers for protection were not decorative. They answered daily uncertainty. Aging changed one's place in the castle. An old servant who had known 3 generations might hold informal authority beyond official rank. An old lord might become impatient, pious, suspicious, or beloved. An old lady might become guardian of family memory. Old bodies in cold stone suffered, but old memories gave depth to rooms. The castle's past lived in those who remembered who had slept where, who had betrayed whom, who had died in which chamber, and which beam had cracked in the hard winter years before. Memory also lived in heraldry. Shields, banners, seals, carved arms, painted glass, embroidered cloth, and tombs all carried identity. A castle displayed family continuity because noble power depended on lineage. The dead were not gone if their arms still marked the hall, if their tombs were prayed over, if their names were repeated in inheritance, if their stories explained current claims. The castle was a house of living people and a house of ancestors. Guests read these signs. A banner could announce alliance. A marriage badge could mark new connection. A tomb could remind visitors of age and legitimacy. Heraldry made blood visible. In a world of disputed claims, visible memory mattered. Dispute was never far away. Land boundaries, inheritance, marriage portions, feudal obligations, debts, wardships, and rights could cause conflict within and beyond the castle. A lord's death could turn a household anxious immediately. Who inherits? Who controls the widow's lands? Who holds the heir if he is a child? Which servants remain? Which alliances survive? A castle after a death could feel like a ship in changing wind. Widowhood deserves special attention because a noble widow could become powerful. She might control dower lands, manage estates, arrange children's futures, resist unwanted remarriage, or become the center of new political negotiations. Widowhood could bring vulnerability, but also authority. A castle under a widow's management was not an empty place waiting for male return. It could be governed sharply. Letters moved such politics. A seal pressed into wax could carry command across miles. A messenger leaving the gate might carry news of illness, a demand for payment, a summons to court, a request for marriage negotiation, a complaint, a warning, or a plea. The road from the castle did not merely bring supplies in. It sent authority out. Roads were uncertain. A messenger could be delayed by flood, thieves, bad weather, broken bridges, war, illness, or the ordinary slowness of travel. Waiting was therefore part of castle life. Waiting for news from court, waiting for a lord to return, waiting for a bride, waiting for a physician, waiting for a king's order, waiting for siege relief, waiting for spring. The castle was a place of waiting disguised as strength. People waited behind walls because walls make patience possible. A peasant cottage could not wait out armed men the same way. A castle could close itself, count stores, and endure. But endurance was not passive. It required discipline. Food rationing, guard rotation, repair, water management, morale, prayer, and negotiation all became forms of action. When no siege came, the same habits of discipline remained in smaller ways. The gate closed at night. Stores were counted. Horses cared for. Weapons maintained. Prayers said. Rank observed. Repairs made. The castle was always preparing for a test that might never arrive. The outer world sometimes entered through celebration. A wedding procession could transform the approach road into color and noise. Musicians, horses, carts, guests, gifts, servants, and onlookers would move toward the gate. The hall would be dressed. The kitchen stretched to its limits. Marriage was joy, but also settlement of land, alliance, fertility, and future inheritance. Every wedding feast carried the weight of generations not yet born. The outer world could also enter through poverty. Beggars might gather near gates, especially on feast days when charity was expected. The castle's duty to give alms was religious, social, and reputational. To feed the poor could help the soul and display generosity. To refuse too harshly could damage honor. Charity did not erase inequality. It made inequality bearable to those who benefited and morally manageable to those above. Pilgrims passing through brought stories of shrines, miracles, roads, and dangers. Soldiers brought rougher tales. Merchants brought prices. Clerics brought doctrine and dispute. Entertainers brought laughter and gossip. The castle was not isolated. It was a listening post. Sometimes the most important thing a traveler brought was novelty. A new song, a new style of sleeve, a different spice mixture, a rumor about court manners, a tale from the crusading world, a strange relic, a better horseshoe, a medical remedy, a game, a phrase. Culture changed by such arrivals. The castle absorbed the outside world slowly and selectively. Inside the walls, the passage of hours differed by rank. For the lord, time could be divided by duties, meals, audiences, hunts, prayers, and political obligations. For the lady, by household management, devotion, textile work, correspondence, children, and guests. For the cook, by fire and meal. For the guard, by watches. For the chaplain, by canonical hours. For the child, by lessons and play. For the prisoner, by waiting. For the sick, by pain. A single day held many clocks. The castle's material world was also full of danger in ordinary ways. Stairs could break a bone. Fire could scar. Knives could slip. Horses could kick. Wells could drown. Roof work could kill. Winter could weaken. Food could spoil. Childbirth could turn fatal. Infection could follow small wounds. Medieval castle life was not constant crisis, but risk was woven into ordinary tasks. People responded with prayer, caution, skill, and acceptance. They blessed journeys. They watched omens. They valued experienced hands. They kept routines. Routine is one of humanity's oldest answers to uncertainty. There were also moments of pleasure that did not require grandeur. Fresh bread, warm ale, a dry cloak after rain, a clean bed, a letter from a loved one, a child recovering from fever, a horse returning sound from a journey, a song remembered, sun in the garden, a winter fire that draws everyone close, a feast after fasting, the first day the air feels like spring. Such pleasures mattered because life was hard enough to make them vivid. A modern person standing in a castle ruin may look for the lord and lady first. But to truly restore the place, one must also restore the ordinary pleasures and irritations. Someone always had cold feet. Someone always wanted more food. Someone always disliked another servant. Someone always feared being blamed. Someone always carried a secret. Someone always hoped to rise. Ambition lived below the high table too. A page wanted knighthood. A clerk wanted patronage. A servant wanted a better position. A groom wanted trust with finer horses. A cook wanted reputation. A steward wanted influence. A chaplain wanted preferment. A lady's attendant might hope for a good marriage. The castle was a ladder, but its rungs were narrow and crowded. Failure could be harsh. Theft, negligence, sexual scandal, insult, disobedience, cowardice, bad accounting, spoiled food, neglected animals, or breach of trust could damage a life. The dense household remembered mistakes. Forgiveness depended on rank, usefulness, relationships, and the seriousness of the offense. Justice within the household was often immediate and personal. A servant could be dismissed, a boy beaten, a clerk replaced, a guard punished, a favored retainer protected. Modern fairness was not the governing assumption. Order mattered. Reputation mattered. The Lord's peace mattered. Yet affection could soften hierarchy. A long-serving nurse might speak more freely than her rank suggested. A trusted old servant might be treated like part of the family in some ways. A chaplain might advise boldly. A lady might protect a maid. A lord might reward loyalty generously. Medieval hierarchy was real, but it was lived through relationships, not abstract charts. The castle's emotional temperature could change quickly. News of a royal summons might energize the household. Rumor of war might tighten it. A child's illness might quiet it. A feast might release it. A death might freeze it. A visiting lord might make everyone perform harder. A shortage might make tempers sharp. A thaw after winter might feel like mercy. Seasonal work reinforced these shifts. Before winter, the castle thought about stores. Before a visit, presentation. Before war, arms. Before a feast, food and display. Before Lent, discipline. Before travel, packing. Before childbirth, preparation. Before death, prayer. The castle was always before something. This forward-leaning quality gave castle life tension. Even on calm days, people anticipated. The next meal, the next guest, the next payment, the next message, the next storm, the next inspection, the next feast day, the next threat. A castle existed to manage uncertainty by enclosing it. That may be why castles still matter to the imagination. They are buildings that make human vulnerability visible. We see the walls and know that someone was afraid. We see the hall and know that someone wanted recognition. We see the chapel and know that someone feared judgment. We see the kitchen and know that everyone needed feeding. We see the tower and know that someone watched the horizon because danger might come from there. A castle is power made from fear and hope together. The fear is obvious: fear of attack, rebellion, theft, hunger, shame, divine punishment, disease, poverty, winter, death. The hope is just as real: hope of security, lineage, honor, hospitality, salvation, comfort, continuity, fame, and memory. The walls were built against fear, but they also held hope inside. This is why a castle is more than military architecture. A wall can stop an arrow, but a castle had to do more than stop arrows. It had to convince people that the Lord's world was stable. It had to make tenants obey, guests respect, servants work, allies trust, enemies hesitate, children inherit, priests pray, and memory endure. It had to be believable. Every day inside the castle was part of that belief. The lord at the high table, the chapel bell, the guard at the gate, the steward with accounts, the lady with keys, the kitchen smoke, the groom with horses, the child learning manners, the servant carrying wood, the banner above the hall, the tower against the sky. All of it said, "This world has order." Of course, it did not always. Castles fell. Lords died. Lines failed. Servants stole. Walls cracked. Heirs quarreled. Kings confiscated. Armies burned. Disease entered. Fire spread. Peasants resisted. Artillery shattered old confidence. Time did what enemies could not. But while the castle lived, it made order visible enough for people to organize their lives around it. That is what we should imagine when we think of life inside a medieval castle. Not a clean fantasy, not a filthy caricature, but a complete human system in stone. A system with beauty and cruelty, warmth and cold, prayer and politics, labor and ceremony, fear and laughter, all pressed together within walls built to last longer than the people inside. And they did last longer. The people are gone. The dogs are gone. The fires are gone. The rushes, banners, stores, beds, ledgers, songs, gossip, quarrels, and smells are gone. But the walls remain in enough places to remind us that life was once concentrated there with extraordinary force. If you stand in a ruined hall and listen carefully, the emptiness is not empty. It is full of missing noise. A final way to enter the castle is through absence. Think of all the things that had to happen for a single quiet evening to be possible. The harvest had to be gathered months earlier. Grain had to be milled. Firewood cut and stacked. Animals bred, fed, slaughtered, or stabled. Cloth spun, woven, dyed, sewn, patched, washed, stored. Roofs repaired before rain came through. Wells kept usable. Accounts written. Debts collected. Roads watched. Tools sharpened. Candles made. Barrels filled. Children instructed. Servants disciplined. Horses shod. Prayers said. Doors barred. A quiet evening inside a castle was never simple. It was the visible surface of 1,000 tasks. The people who performed those tasks did not think of themselves as living in a historical scene. They had no reason to imagine future tourists walking through roofless rooms with guidebooks, or future artists painting towers in mist, or future children dreaming of nights from picture books. They were concerned with immediate things: the pot boiling over, the Lord's temper, the missing key, the lame horse, the late rent, the wet cloak, the child's cough, the guest arriving before the room was ready. This ordinariness is what makes them real. The Middle Ages are often made either too grand or too crude. Too grand, and the castle becomes a dream of banners, romance, and shining armor. Too crude, and it becomes only mud, stink, and brutality. But life is rarely one color. A castle could contain a beautiful chapel and a foul latrine, a refined song and a violent punishment, an affectionate marriage and a political bargain, a delicious feast and hungry workers, a warm fur-lined bed and a frozen guard post. The contradictions are not flaws in the picture. They are the picture. The people inside knew beauty in ways sharpened by discomfort. A warm room mattered because many rooms were cold. A clean cloth mattered because washing was work. A sweet spice mattered because most food was local and seasonal. A candle mattered because darkness was real. A garden mattered because stone was hard. Music mattered because winter could be long. Hospitality mattered because roads were dangerous. Prayer mattered because death was near. In such a world, pleasure did not need to be constant to be powerful. It appeared in moments. The first mouthful after fasting, the hall bright for a feast, a falcon returning to the glove, a safe arrival after bad roads, a letter from someone absent, a child laughing in the courtyard, sunlight on a wall hanging, the smell of fresh herbs underfoot, the relief of hearing that the enemy had turned away. Fear also appeared in moments. Hooves on the road at night, smoke where none should be, a fever that did not break, a messenger with mud up to his knees, a shout from the wall, a missing child, a spark near dry straw, a rumor of plague, a Lord's face after bad news, a silence in the hall after someone spoke too freely. The castle magnified such moments because life there was concentrated. Many people lived close to authority. Many depended on the same stores, the same fire, the same gate, the same well, the same decisions. In a dispersed village, trouble might spread slowly. In a castle, trouble could run from kitchen to chamber to gate in minutes. So could joy. A returning lord might fill the court with relief. A new heir might change every calculation. A royal favor might lift the household's mood. A successful hunt might bring meat, pride, and laughter. A feast could make even servants feel part of a larger abundance, though not equally. The household was unequal, but emotions could move through it like weather. Weather is the right word. because the castle had emotional climates. Some households were tense, some generous, some pious, some violent, some cultured, some chaotic. Visitors sensed it quickly. Servants knew it deeply. Children absorbed it permanently. The same layout could feel safe under one lord and dangerous under another. This is another reason the castle was never merely stone. It was character made habitable. The habits of those in power seeped into every room. A careful lord produced one kind of household. A reckless one produced another. A competent lady could make order out of complexity. A cruel steward could poison daily life. A wise chaplain could calm fears. A corrupt clerk could ruin trust. A beloved cook could become more important to morale than anyone admitted. Large structures are kept alive by human temperament. When the household moved away, the castle changed instantly. With the lord and lady absent, the hall lost some of its theater. Fewer fires burned. Fewer rooms opened. A caretaker staff maintained what remained. The castle might become quieter, almost dormant. Then word came that the household would return, and the whole place stirred. Cleaning, repairing, airing, provisioning, preparing beds, checking stores, making ready for the arrival of power. Arrival itself was dramatic. Horses in the court, dogs excited, servants running, trunks unloaded, orders given, the ladies' attendants carrying bundles, children lifted down, the lord speaking first to the steward, perhaps before even warming himself. News brought from elsewhere, the building filling again with its own purpose. Departure had another mood. Packing, counting, closing, choosing who traveled and who stayed. Servants anxious about being selected or left. Horses prepared, letters sent ahead, rooms covered or secured, fires allowed to die, the gate opening not to admit the world but to send the household into it. A castle was fixed, but lordship moved. This rhythm of arrival and departure helps explain why castle life could feel both rooted and restless. The walls stood still. The people did not. Some traveled for court, some for war, some for marriage, some for pilgrimage, some for trade, some because they were ordered, some because service required it. Roads connected castles into networks of kinship, obligation, and news. A castle might look alone on its hill, but socially it belonged to a web. That web could stretch across kingdoms. A noble family might hold estates in several regions. Marriage could connect one castle to another far away. A ward could be raised in a household not his own. A daughter could leave and never again live in the place of her birth. A younger son might seek fortune in war or service elsewhere. A servant might follow a mistress into marriage. The castle was home, but not always a permanent one. For those who remained, routine returned. Bread again, water again, firewood again, horses again, prayer again, accounts again, cold again, gossip again, work again. This repetition was not emptiness. It was the substance of life. The great events that enter chronicles, sieges, marriages, battles, royal visits, deaths, were held up by repeated ordinary days. Without those days, the great events would have no setting. A medieval castle at its most truthful is therefore not the moment of siege or feast alone. It is the morning after the feast, when grease must be cleaned from vessels, bones removed, rushes examined, guests still sleeping, servants exhausted, and the household already turning toward the next demand. It is the day after the alarm proved false, when everyone laughs too loudly from relief. It is the week after a funeral, when the same rooms must continue functioning though one presence has vanished. The castle survived because life continued even when meaning shifted. And then, after years or centuries, life left. A wall remained where no guard walked. A hearth remained where no fire burned. A garderobe remained where no one shivered. A chapel arch remained where no bell called the household. A hall remained where no table was set. The castle became more beautiful to later eyes precisely because it had stopped being practical. Ruin removes smell, labor, fear, and inequality. It leaves silhouette, but we should give the people back to it. The woman counting linen, the boy carrying a cup, the man at the gate, the cook with a burned arm, the groom asleep in straw, the child learning letters from the chaplain, the lady listening for a messenger, the Lord pretending confidence before men who need him to look certain, the prisoner counting footsteps, the mason repairing a crack, the dog waiting under the table, the watchman under stars. They are the life inside the castle, not the towers, not the banners, not the romance. Them. There is one last misunderstanding to remove. A medieval castle was not a place where the past stood still. Even during one lifetime, rooms changed, people changed, habits changed, and the building adjusted as money, taste, war, inheritance, and weather allowed. A new fireplace might make one chamber more desirable. A glazed window might change how a room felt in winter. A repaired roof might save stores from damp. A new lord might prefer another residence and leave this one quieter. A new lady might reorganize servants. A new priest might bring stricter observance. A new war might turn a comfortable household back into a fortress overnight. The castle was therefore always becoming something, not simply being something. This matters because the phrase medieval castle covers centuries and many regions. A small timber fort on an early Norman mound was not the same as a great 13th century stone fortress, and neither was the same as a late medieval residence softened by larger windows, richer chambers, and more refined domestic planning. A castle in Wales, France, Germany, Spain, Italy, Scotland, or the Crusader states could differ in form, climate, materials, enemies, customs, and household life. The world inside the walls was never identical everywhere, but certain truths return. The hall mattered, the gate mattered, food mattered, rank mattered, cold mattered, horses mattered, prayer mattered, labor mattered. The castle stood between danger and comfort, and it never fully belonged to either. It was built because people were afraid, but lived in because people needed home. It was made for war, but filled with bread, children, beds, songs, laundry, ledgers, dogs, and arguments about everyday things. That is the secret life of the castle. The military shell is obvious. The human interior takes longer to see. If you stand at the bottom of a ruined stair, it is easy to imagine armored men rushing downward. It is harder and more truthful to imagine a servant carrying a basin up those same steps while trying not to spill hot water. If you stand in a chapel ruin, it is easy to admire the arch. It is harder to imagine a tired household standing there before breakfast, half cold and half devout. If you stand in the hall, it is easy to picture a feast. It is harder to picture the morning sweeping after it, when the glamour has been cleared away and work begins again. History often preserves the exceptional. Daily life hides in repetition, but repetition is where people actually live. So the castle should be remembered not only at the moment of attack, banquet, or royal visit, but on an ordinary wet Tuesday when the yard is muddy, the bread is late, the lord is irritated, the lady is checking stores, the chaplain is correcting a child's letters, the cook is shouting for more onions, the dogs have tracked dirt into the hall, and the guard above the gate is wishing he had chosen any other duty. That ordinary day is not less medieval than a battle. It may be more revealing, because most of life inside a castle was not the clash of swords. It was maintenance of walls, of rank, of food, of memory, of faith, of horses, of alliances, of warmth, of dignity, of the belief that this stone world would still be standing tomorrow. For many centuries, it was. And when the castle finally became quiet for good, it did not become meaningless. It became a container for all the lives that had passed through it. Later ages looked at the towers and saw romance, nationality, ruin, tyranny, heritage, nostalgia, or beauty. Each age found what it needed. But the stones themselves had first been shaped for people who wanted more immediate things: a defensible gate, a dry storehouse, a warm chamber, a safe well, a respected hall, a place to pray, a place to sleep, and a place from which their name might endure. That desire to endure may be the most castle-like desire of all. Every tower says it. Every thick wall says it. Every carved doorway, every heraldic shield, every chapel niche, every fireplace built into stone says the same thing in a different language. Let this last longer than we do. The people did not last. The world that made them did not last. But enough remains for the imagination to do its careful work. The keep is cold tonight. The last fire in the hall has fallen low. The dogs are asleep in the rushes. The watchman on the tower looks out over fields silvered by moonlight. Somewhere below, the village is quiet. Somewhere above, behind a heavy door, a noble family sleeps under wool and fur. Somewhere near the kitchen, a servant dreams of morning bread. The walls hold the night, and for a little while longer, the castle lives. Sleep well. Good night.